TRC EDC back again with another knife video. This is another installment of the Knife Noob series, and that is the series in which I go in and talk about things that a lot of times people have to look onto YouTube or onto blade forums or onto any of the other places in the community that are long-winded explanations. Sometimes they have, you go on one of the Facebook groups and post and try to get answers from people. These are all long roundabout ways of trying to get answers to questions that I'm going to answer for you in this series of videos. Some basic concepts that really every knife person should know that don't really get talked about enough. So what's the topic for today? Today's topic is break-in periods. And what does that really mean? What, when you get a knife and there's an issue with it, what is a realistic break-in and what's not? So let's go ahead and dive right in. I've got a number of knives right here. This is a Benchmade Griptilian. This is the G10 version with 20 CV. This is a Benchmade Bailout. This is the Chavez Ultramar 229. This is the Spyderco Shaman St. Nick's exclusive in 4V. And this is the Sprint Run version of the Shaman in carbon fiber and S90V. And this is the Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive Benchmade 940 with the M390 in the blade and several other features as well. So, break-in periods. So different knife designs have different issues with breaking in, and what is it you're trying to break in really. So let's talk about, well, first things first, let's talk about the axis lock, because I really got this idea from some issues with the axis lock, particularly this knife. So, and I'm going to clear this off, and I'll get back to these in a second. So this Griptilian, I had been wanting a Griptilian for a long time. I did not buy one because, the $90, $100 ones, they have steels which are actually perfectly adequate at the time. S30V wasn't the standard. At the time it was, I think there were a couple D2 ones out, and there was, maybe it was N690 or something like that. Somebody can correct me in the comments below as to exactly what Benchmade was using in their base model at the time. But the 20 CV one is one that I really wanted for a long time, and I just didn't get until it went on sale. So, because I didn't want to pay $180 for a Griptilian, I just didn't. I looked at the, at the DLT exclusive one, which is like $220 or $230, and I couldn't justify to myself spending that much on a Griptilian. Worst case, I would go ahead and get something else and buy scales for it separately on the secondary market. I'd probably be spending about the same amount of money, but I get something closer to something ideal. All that is an aside. I saw this go on sale for about $140. I think it was KnifeWorks that was offering it. I can't remember exactly which site it was, but I think it was KnifeWorks. And this was the last one that they had. So I normally put in the comment section when I'm ordering knives to check for blade centering, check for check for good action and no lock stick and all sorts of things like that. And I put the instruction in. I get a phone call from KnifeWorks, and they say, listen, you got the last one. It's the only one left. It does have some lock stick on the lock bar. We can cancel your order. Let us know what you want to do. I told them, you know what? Go ahead and send it. I really wanted it. I guess worst case, I could pay some return shipping and send it back to them. I don't know what the return policy is. I probably should ask that first. But in any event, I didn't end up returning it. It got to me, and when it got to me, I was really happy with the G10 on here. I was really happy with the blue backspacers. Or standoffs, I should say in this case. I was really happy with the blue liners and the deep carry pocket clip. And then I flipped the blade out. I was really happy with the DLC coating on the blade and the fact that it's a 20 CV blade and the fact that it has, it has a nice Spidey hole here on the sheep's foot version. The drop point version, which is this, excuse me, doesn't have that. So the standard is with the thumb studs, but I really wanted to get this, so I got it. And then I went to close it. And when I went to close it, and I'm not a weak guy. I was an athlete in my time. I weightlifted for a long time, and I have pretty strong hands, pretty strong arms. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to tell you, basically, no matter how hard I pulled back on this, on the axis lock, I could not disengage it. The lock stick was that bad. It was so bad, it basically had become a fixed blade. I decided, I went online and looked at a bunch of videos about sanding down the internals, different ways to try to fix the issue. But I told myself, all right, well, let me try at least, before I go disassembling it, because Benchmade doesn't like when you disassemble their knives, before I go disassembling it, let me try to break it in by just flipping it back and forth. And so I went and, put on a safety glove just in case I would slip and cut my hand. And then I pulled back on this just literally as hard as I could until it disengaged. And then as soon as I did that, I would wrist flick it back out. Now, why wrist flick? Because the wrist flick gives enough force on this that it forces this forward as far as it wants to go. And so then it gets stuck again. So I wanted it to get stuck again, because what I wanted to do was continue to pull it back while it's getting stuck. And I did that over and over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually, literally 100% of the lock stick is gone. 100%. I mean, you can see I'm moving it with one finger. Very easy now. No lock stick whatsoever. It is smooth now. You can't even tell, excuse me, the lock stick was ever there. And so, breaking in the axis lock just takes time. Sometimes it takes the opening it up and sanding down some of the internals. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if you can see in here. So there's a track in here. You can see there's a track in there, metal track, and you can see the springs underneath over here. So what you would do is you'd take this apart. So you'd take the two parts of the metal track off, and then you'd put the sandpaper, really fine grit sandpaper, on the inside of here, and you'd twist it to sort of just wear away the minutest amount of metal, because these are made so the tolerances are reasonably tight, not like a CRK tight, Chris Reeve knives tight, but the tolerances are reasonably tight. Excuse me, and as a result, you don't want to sand away too much material. So again, use a high grit if you can for fine detail work. So that's breaking in an axis lock. Now I had to do the same thing for this. The Smoking Mountain Knife Works 940. Again, now it's just, just the slightest touch pulls it. Really no problem, the slightest touch. And now this thing's a dream to flip. But when I got it, so not all the time when it flipped out, but only when I flipped it hard, it would go ahead and run into lock stick problems. So, went ahead and fixed that the same way I fixed this, and it worked. No problem. I didn't even have to take the knife open. This one had a different issue. On this one, the back of this blade right here, if I can get it to focus, focus. It doesn't want to focus. Here, let's see if it does there. Okay, there we go. The back of this blade, you can see right in there, as I'm turning it, the back of the blade gets exposed in different areas. So part of the back of the blade, and you see the blade is, you can probably see in here, it rides up against the axis lock. And that's what causes it to, to spring back and forth as it rolls. So the problem was the back of the blade was rough. And because the back of the blade was rough, when I pulled it across the axis lock, you could feel it as gritty. It really felt extremely gritty. And so again, this is one of those things where the easy solution, not the easy solution, but the solution, excuse me, that most people would have for this, the solution most people would have for this is to take it apart. And what I did was, no, I said, I'm not going to take it apart. I'm going to try to get rid of it without taking it apart. And then if all else fails, I'll take it apart. So one of the reasons that I wanted to do that was because in order to fix this, I would have had to take the whole thing apart, putting these back together. If you watch my bug out video when I put the scales on, these are a pain to take apart and put back together and get everything lined up correctly. So if you can avoid it, definitely a best bet. But again, over time, grittiness wore away. Now it's smooth. You wouldn't even know that that was there previously. Sometimes the detent needs a break-in. That was the case on this. And the detent on this was, like, if you saw my review video, was such that even the slightest pressure, just placing my finger on, without putting any pressure on, placing my finger on there and then pushing this up, the thumb stud up to disengage it, that tiniest bit of pressure was forcing the detent ball to lock this into place so that I can't do that, so that I can't open it. Second I take my finger away, it opens. So I wanted to address that detent issue. So how did I address the detent issue? Again, excuse me, I apologize, guys. It's almost 2 a.m., so, you know, if I'm yawning, that's probably why. But it's not for a lack of enthusiasm for this stuff, because honestly, I really love it. I wouldn't be up at 2 a.m. doing this stuff if I didn't love it. But, you know, the detent on this, again, gets a little stuck, and just over time, opening and closing it, it'll wear a track into the blade. Once it wears the track into the blade, then all of a sudden it's less of an issue. So even though my finger was on it now, that wouldn't have opened before, but now it opened. It's fine. All right, what else? Spyderco Shaman. So those of you who watched my unboxing of this knife, the S90V1, will remember, and I'm going to pull this up for a second, but you will remember that this literally would not drop. I mean, it would not close. It would just stay right here. I'd disengage the lock, and I would have to move it by hand all the way around. If I flicked it, it wouldn't flick. You know, if I tried to flick it, it wouldn't flick. Now, boom. That only stopped because it hit my hand. But, you know, boom. It's 100% a free dropper now. So this, in order to get this done and broken in, I just sat here and, you know, wiggled the knife a bunch of times. You got to be careful because you don't want to get stuck in the open like I just did and almost stab my hand. What I usually do in this case is I'll do it like this so it doesn't stab, and I'll just sit here and run it back and forth, and then I'll widen the arc a little bit and run it like this, and I'll start running it back and forth until it hits that track and you can feel the detent start to pop in. And then I'll just keep going, and then eventually it'll put a wear pattern in the phosphor bronze washers, and it'll become a free dropper or something close to it. So the reason I have this version is because this version is basically at right now where this version used to be. If you look, I've disengaged the lock, no movement, literally nothing. And, you know, I'll shake it and still not a whole lot. Shake it, it's disengaged, not really going anywhere, you know, so this needs a break-in. Now this has a DLC coating on it, so it might be a little harder to break in, but I'm gonna go ahead and, you know, start breaking this in over time. I haven't broken it in yet. I'm not gonna do that just for you on camera for the first time, but you sort of get the gist of how you would address this if you were going to be, so this tripod there, you might have seen at the bottom. If you were gonna be trying to break this in, that's how you'd go about it. So, hope this was helpful, guys. It's a little bit longer than a lot of my other Knife Noob videos, but I think it's a topic that, you know, really doesn't get enough play, that's how to break in a lot of knives. At what point, you know, should you be concerned? I guess is a question that I haven't answered yet. So when to be concerned with some of these issues, lock stick issues. So obviously if there's blade play, and you double check the pivot and the pivot is screwed down, but there's still blade play, return it, exchange it, do what you need to do. That's not really acceptable. Okay. Another thing you might look at is, you know, think about what's causing the issue. If the issue is the pivot's too tight, then loosen the pivot a little bit, but you might need some Loctite in order to keep it from backing out. If it is, and also you don't want to cause blade play. If it's just the phosphor bronze washers and you need to create a wear pattern, then again, just go create a wear pattern. You don't even have to, you know, you don't have to, you know, do all the bells and whistles. Just go ahead and create that wear pattern. In any event, if you guys have any questions about something you're experiencing in your knives, or you know, different ways that you've addressed some of the lock stick or other issues that might happen on a knife, or action issues, that if you've addressed them in ways that I haven't or that I haven't covered, go ahead and drop that into a comment below so that I can respond to that. You know, if you have a good idea, I'll even pin it up so that other people can see it. So I plan to have these be a helpful series where you try to portray to the best of your ability sorry guys, it's late. I'm falling asleep. I took some medicine. You know, I actually lost my train of thought there. So with that note, yeah, just give me a like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'm going to sign off. I'm falling asleep while I'm talking, guys. It's too late for me. Thanks so much.